Well, National Poetry Month is closing out in the next couple of days, but local poets are ensuring that it goes out with a slam. Thank you. The Winnipeg Poetry Slam is getting ready for their first qualifier. And you, yes, you are invited to try your hand. Jules Stevenson is coming into the upcoming qualifier event on something of a winning streak, if one can ever really win at poetry, of course. She was recently a competitor in the Canadian Individual Poetry Slam, a national competition that took place a couple of weeks ago in Vancouver. Jules joins us in the Classic 107 studios this morning. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
So
Always
first,
a pleasure.
Oh, of course. So first of all, let's go back a couple of weeks to Vancouver. Tell us more about this Canadian Individual Poetry Slam competition.
Yeah, so it was just absolutely mind-blowing experience. I went in as a storm poet, which means a wild card, whereas our poets who are going to compete in our upcoming qualifiers, they would be, competing for their spot. So yeah, I went to Vancouver along with 24 other poets from across Canada, and it was 3 days of very intense, very amazing competition and workshops and just community with other artists and poets and just people. Yeah, and it was overall just an amazing experience. Every poem I heard changed me in some way.
Wow.
Like it was just absolutely amazing.
Okay, we'll talk about that in just a second, but I want to know, as a storm poet or wild card, as you say, what kind of maybe added pressure does that add for you as somebody who's coming in maybe on a slightly, I hesitate to say the word, like lower rung than like somebody who's won a qualifying event, but you're going in there when you've kind of already got your back up against the poetry wall, so to speak.
Yeah.
How does that impact the how you perform and how you share your words?
Yeah, it definitely makes me feel like an underdog when I'm going in. I feel like I have more to prove because I'm not going in having already won like the city qualifier. Yeah. Right. So I'm just going in on my own. I have, of course, the support of the Winnipeg Poetry Slam, who they're just amazing. Yeah, but it's just me.
Yeah. That's right. That's a lot more of a trepidatious thing, but you are, as you say, inspired by all the poems that you hear, and they all changed you. You must have come back a completely different person for all the poems.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, what did you hear from those poets that are coming from all across Canada that were so impactful for you?
Yeah. I mean, just everything. Being able to get up there on that stage in front of, however many people are in the venue, which are like people in the industry, people who know poetry and know what they're doing, as well as an online audience. And then it, of course, gets posted online afterwards. So people are going up there and they're sharing their truths, and they're sharing very deeply intense and intimate and personal stories about their lives. And it's just, it's so impactful to hear their stories and be like, oh, hey, like I feel that. I felt that before. I'm going to take on some of that now, and here's mine.
Wow.
Right? So it's like a kind of an exchange, which is really, really impactful.
A real like catharsis, it sounds like, to be able to like you're sharing a lot of each other's sort of emotional loads as it sounds. And from you visited us a few months ago to talk about the Poetry Slam as well. And from what I recall about your poetry then, it was very deeply personal. It was quite emotionally charged. It can be a little bit darker sometimes. What was that like to be sharing those words on a national stage?
It was really cool, actually, to be able to see the impact in real time, see how like my words and my story impacts and influences people, once I've performed it, and then I come back down and, other poets are coming up to me and saying, like, that was amazing. Like, I felt that. I went through something similar. You changed my perspective. Just all of these things. I do a poem about my cat, so I had a lot of people showing me pictures of their cats afterwards, which was just amazing.
Life-giving, and maybe a bit of healing as well after all of that
definitely.
sort of emotional load exchange through poetry. What did you hear in the characteristics of poems from other places in Canada that you're maybe now going, I wonder what that would sound like or how that would resonate with Winnipeg audiences?
Yeah. So there were so many just absolutely amazing poets. The poet who won, she's now the 2-time winner, Maya Spoken. She is absolutely amazing. Every time I hear her poetry, it's very gentle yet intense and loving. She writes a lot about her daughter, and just that's something that I've never experienced. I've never experienced that kind of relationship like with a child. But the way she writes about it, I feel it, and I'm like impacted by it. I think depending on where you come from, there's different poems. Everybody has a different story, and it's impacted by your community. Either, you're nurtured by it or you create against it.
Interesting to consider that sort of duality of either you are inspired by your community or you are writing in defiance of that community or with the friction of that community, which maybe in turn, I'm speaking out loud here, I'm processing all of these things as we go here. It feels like also that's a bit of an inspiration from that community.
Definitely.
So this community hosting its first qualifying event of the year. What can people expect from that qualifying event for maybe somebody who's never been to a Winnipeg Poetry Slam event before?
Yeah, well, if you haven't been, definitely come. It's a great time. So on Tuesday, I think we only have 3 spots available, and they are only available at the door. So if you want to compete, you have to get there at 6 p.m., maybe a little bit earlier, because we're not sure how many more people want to compete. But all of our other spots are filled. We just keep a couple for in-person just in case. So it's gonna be intense. I believe we're going to have 2 rounds of competition. I think after the first round, we'll cut the poets in half.
Okay.
Not like literally, just
yeah. We'll emotionally cut them in half with our critiques.
Exactly. No. So poets will have 3 minutes to go up and do their poem. We have all of our information about it on our blog it's winnipegpoetryslam.ca.
That's right.
Not .com.
Yep.
.ca, because there is one .com. It's a whole thing.
All right then.
Yeah. And so this is the first of our 4 slam competition season.
Okay.
The rest of our slams are going to be during the summer. And every time you show up, your points are going to be accumulated. We have this whole process written out on our blog about how we weigh the points and everything.
Okay.
And then whoever ends up winning the season is going to represent Winnipeg at CIPS 2026.
All right. I imagine that, given the fact that people are going to be fighting for those final 3 spots at the door on Tuesday at the Handsome Daughter, will be... There's this competitive element, of course, to
definitely.
This. Maybe you can also speak a bit to the culture that exists in the audience for these poets.
Yeah, it's kind of sporty. It's like it's a competition.
Yeah.
People get really riled up. They have the poet that they want to win, but then, this poet you've never heard comes out of nowhere and you're like, oh man, like that is the best poem I've ever heard. So there's a lot of snapping, which is how people will show how they respond to the poem. And also we have 5 random judges from the audience. And whenever they put their scores up, the audience lets them know how much they hate the score that they gave, right? Because it's always too low. Absolutely always too low.
Right.
But yeah, it's very, very fun, very sporty, and very competitive.
Very also fitting given the fact that the city is so caught up in playoff fever anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you want to channel that energy into something artistic and creative, maybe this is the outlet for you.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit before about the character of the poems that are coming from other places that you experienced in Vancouver at CIPS 2025. What can you tell us maybe about what you've learned on the flip side of that coin about the character of poems that come from this community?
Yeah. Ooh, that's an interesting one. every poem is so different, and every poet is so different. But I find that poets who come from this community, when they write about Winnipeg, they never hate Winnipeg. You know, they might dislike the winters or like some aspects of it, but
Sure.
there's always like a sort of love that comes out of it. And then for characteristics, I would say we have a lot of people who are very open about their struggles, especially with like mental health. And yeah, it's a very, very strong community within there where we're all very supportive of each other and each other's struggles. And yeah.
Okay. So in addition to these 4 qualifying events you have coming up, you also have the Winnipeg Poetry Slam event happening at the end of May. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about what to expect at that event, maybe perhaps a little bit less competitive than a qualifying event.
Yes. Okay. So the May 27th Poetry Slam is in partnership with Heidi Sander, who is a writer, I believe, in Ontario. And she is putting on a nationwide competition for poems under the theme of Canada is Our Poem, which I think
Like home.
Yeah, like
Gotcha.
home. It's very, very cute. I really like it. And there's a cash prize. And if you win the slam, you get into her anthology as well. And there's also a cash prize there. So
Okay.
it's going to be really exciting.
And who can enter into this poetry slam?
Yeah, as long as you have a poem on theme, you can enter.
Okay, that's wonderful. So we've got so much to look forward to, starting with that Poetry Slam first qualifier taking place April the 29th at the Handsome Daughter. Doors open at 6 with the show beginning at 7 o'clock. It's $10, I believe, for an admission there as well. You can find out more at winnipegpoetryslam.ca.
Yes.
Or head over to Winnipeg Poetry Slam on Instagram to find out more information. Jules Stevenson, as always, such a delight to have you here. Thanks for telling us about the upcoming events with Winnipeg Poetry Slam, and congratulations on your performance at CIPS 2025.
Thank you so much.